save
I'll
it.
be David. You'll be Sara.
Totally. Yeah. I'll just have the AI generator just like...
Yeah. Podcaster.
You think you're going
Just
to
when
get
you
in.
thought he would finish the question, or the guest would finish their response.
And never ends. One other thing I've really been ruminating on lately.
See, I hear the maniacal laugh.
Oh, we're not done.
Excellent. See, we're already having fun.
Yes.
And yes, you'll be able to make your 11. So, Westerlund.
Correct.
That's how you print duh.
Westerlund.
Like part duh. Okay.
And there's just a T on the end. It's not Westerlund.
Westerlund. Duh. Okay.
Make sure you
excellent.
get that.
Honey, I like the Holden podcast, but the last episode they spent 15 minutes on the pronunciation.
Oh, are we recording?
Yeah, oh yeah, we've been recording this entire time. They've already got some really juicy like bits.
Oh.
I thought about actually creating like a subscription to the podcast where they get all like the blooper reels.
Totally.
So anyway, and your last name?
McMahon.
McMahon, Mr. Linda McMahon. Okay.
Well, you didn't put it down.
It's more the Lund than the land. Most people say land. It's Lund, so thanks. She likes ending the duh.
Duh, right. It's whatever makes you happy. Okay, so welcome to another episode of the Holden Village podcast. We are in week 6 of the 2023 summer program at Holden Village. I am with the dynamic duo, the improvised dynamic duo, David Westerlund and Sara McMahon. Woo!
Glad to be here.
Yeah, but David's already just like pacing around, so we can...
Pacing helps with podcasting, apparently.
Yeah. So, okay.
You're getting a lot of editing for us.
Oh no, this is perfect. I'm just gonna edit, like, take away all the non-laughs.
Okay.
It's just gonna be a montage of laughter. Like, I think that's actually probably what, we need.
Yes.
We do.
It is.
Speaking of laughter.
How would both of you like to describe what you are sharing with the village this week?
Basically, when we think of improv, sometimes people think of musical improv like jazz, and then there's theater improv. Some people have seen the show Whose Line Is It Anyway, and they're familiar with that comedy. And then what Sara and I are bringing is this craft, this field of applied improvisation. So taking all the things that make improv work on stage, like being present to each other, being willing to let go, not talking too long. I'm still learning that one. And so many other things, seeing mistakes as gifts, celebrating failure, reincorporating failure, taking that beyond the theater into any place where people interact. And in our times, we really need to work on our ability to relate and collaborate. And so what Sara and I have been doing this week is leading classes. They're all highly interactive, where we play games and exercises, reflecting on what did we learn from this. And one of the wonderful things, well, I'll just share this briefly, is just people at the end of the first class on Monday, hour and a half, were like, wow, I feel so connected to people. And I love being a part of making that happen.
Yeah, the Surgeon General of the United States actually just listed isolation and loneliness just today.
Breaking
5
news?
minutes
Sarah.
ago.
Break-
Yeah.
Actually, before it's breaking news, they text Sara first.
He texted me and he was like, I need you to get the word out. And he said that that loneliness and isolation are at epidemic levels in the US, even more so than, obviously we had a pandemic that contributed to it, but we were hurting before that, and now it's even more. So something like what we're doing is really a very easy and instantaneous way to move out of isolation and into connection. Mm-hmm. It really doesn't take much. Even within one game of playing, people start to feel a difference. Mm-hmm. They start to feel wanted. People were saying in the feedback yesterday when people were talking about how they felt after the class. A couple people said, I feel like there's a place for me, which
Yeah.
is really meaningful.
Mm-hmm. I remember another person saying belonging.
Yeah.
Which is basically the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a very accessible art form and very a great way to build community that doesn't have anything to do with any outside sort of factors of who you are, other than who you are right here in this moment with me.
And it's something, as you were talking, Sarah, about it's accessible to anyone. It's not like in our class we're creating a scene and being characters. It's all this basic stuff that make that character scene work on stage. But just so as listeners think about this, often when I say improv, people will back up their body and put their hand out like, oh, I could never do that, right?
Yeah.
So it's really awesome when people realize there's these very simple games that not only can they do, but it feels liberating. And then one of the joyful things for Sarah and I this week is being out in the village and seeing a parent
so
with a
good.
child teaching that game, playing the game, and laughing together.
Yeah, or people doing their secret handshake as they pass each other in the doorway of the bookstore, you know? Oh, it's delicious.
In both of your personal lives, where has improv helped both of you the most?
That's a great question.
I can think of two ways off the top of my head. One is really, I think to myself quite often about playing the scene that I'm in, playing the offer that I've been given. Like, what is the offer right now? Okay, I just missed my bus. What does that mean as far as what is that offer? Oh, I'm gonna walk now, and oh, I found this great store. And it's not always like wonderful things, but as opposed to being super upset about it and like not accepting that that's the reality, I can say, well, this is the reality of where I am, now what, right? And the other one is something I was just thinking about this morning of, as David alluded to, we both like to talk a lot. We both sort of process as we're talking. And I was thinking about using the game Half-Life. Do you know that game? Do either of you know that game? Yeah.
Probably at some point.
You play a scene and then for like a minute, 30 seconds, whatever, and then you play it again, you cut it in half, and then you cut it in half again and cut it in half until you're doing the scene in 1 second. And I was thinking about that for myself in terms of what's important about playing that game is that as you play it, all the stuff that is filler, hi, how are you? Good, how are you? That happens on stage, it all falls away. And everything that's left is what's really important to communicate someone's wants, needs, emotions, desires, whatever it is to the other person. And so I was thinking about that this morning of like, what if I treated what I had to say as though there was a constraint of I needed to say the things that really mattered, you know, instead of just all this filler stuff, and or sometimes noticing I'm using the filler stuff because I need it, because I'm afraid or I feel too vulnerable or whatever it is, you know, just sort of helped me pay attention to what was happening with some of the choices I was making with words and how I was talking and stuff.
That's awesome. I'm very fascinated with that topic because I've also discovered in my life and also listening to other people do improv is like how many disclaimers we make. Like, you know, particularly so that people won't judge us. It's like,
Right.
and like that's like 50% of like the fillers is
Right.
like these like protective disclaimers.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and when you have that limitation on your words, whether it's that game or a game that says you can say 3 words this whole scene,
right.
or something like that, how do you wait in that silence and fill it? You're not just standing there doing nothing. You're actively present and filling that space, but you have to really pay attention to that. And you know that game too, the first time you redo the scene, people tend to speed it up and try to jam everything still that they had said before. They try to get it all in, and then they end up with like 5 seconds at the end that there's nothing there because they've crammed it all in. And then usually by the second time they think, oh, I can let go, right? So it's about like, I don't have to still try to keep all this stuff in, I can let go of it. And we just are really trying to be seen and heard and understood. And sometimes that comes about by trying to cram in all of us into a conversation, but what if we left space for, you know,
Yeah, so that takes me to how I can often do that in Holden, and I know other people can too, try to jam so much in to our experience, right? And if we think about it that way too. I think about this past Monday, today's Thursday, I realized in the morning that the day before I had done that jamming, and I just had this intention when I woke up, I want to have spaciousness. I want to be spacious. And I just sort of let the day unfold. I had some things on my schedule, and then I had lunch with you, Deb, that was wonderful. And before that, I ran into an old friend from Bellingham, and we walked to Beanie's together and had this great conversation. And so it's this willingness to let go, and like so much life and improv, if something's difficult, we need to practice it. And that's what's great about the improv games and exercises is it's an opportunity to practice. And Sara and I did something back in January. We had heard an NPR story in November of 2022 about even just 20 minutes a day of improv can change your life kind of thing. Boost your confidence, lower your anxiety, all this. And we've heard that stuff. It wasn't like new to us, but we sort of glommed on. Can I use the word glom in this podcast?
Yeah.
This is a glom accepting podcast.
I'm just gonna duplicate the word. It's just gonna glom.
Can you start us on bass line?
It's starting to get gross when we do that.
So I glommed onto whatever's left my head now. This is what happens in my mind.
The NPR article.
Thank you, NPR article. We glommed onto the 20-minute thing and we said, hey, what if we did something on Zoom? Sara lives in Seattle, I live in Bellingham, about 90 miles apart. And we did a 20-minute playtime on Zoom every day for a week. At first I wanted to do it every day for the month of January, and then I'm like, let it go, pare it down, half life, quarter life. And so we did that from 10 to 10:20 Pacific, Monday to Friday, and the second week of January of this year.
In just 20 minutes.
Just 20 minutes. We were really
yeah.
sharp with that. And as people logged on, we had people put in the chat, how are you feeling as you arrive? And normalizing, we can feel lots of things, but often people are feeling stressed, tired, overwhelmed. And we play some games and then check in at the end. And it was just great hearing like, wow, I feel renewed, or I feel
connected,
joyful. Yeah. And so in the applied improv world, we talk about, there's this one woman, Kat Coppett, who's in the Albany, New York area, and she talks about improv as the gym. How do we get in our reps to learn new neural pathways, new behavioral pathways, and relating pathways?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that makes me think of the thing that was really cool too about the article, and is that they were saying that for people who have anxiety, oftentimes, right, you're thinking about what's coming, what's possible. Oh, I can't face that. This something bad will happen, or whatever it is. And the thing that improv does for them is that they can face kind of scary situations in a very controlled environment and a fun environment, and then they come through on the other side and they think, I survived.
Yeah.
I did it. And so it's working that muscle of in the gym of I'm okay.
And I'll speak to that in terms of, was your question before, like how has it impacted your life? Yeah. So related to anxiety, I deal with anxiety, and I have my whole life, and I realize certain things will provoke it, like too much caffeine, or basically caffeine is...
As he chugs his coffee,
It's decaf.
Okay.
Which loves caffeine, I know that. I don't know where this is coming from. I always buzz going off in my pocket. But we're in a culture of overstimulation, right? And so I have to have ways to reset, to bring it back. And I'm what I call a UADD. I'm undiagnosed ADD. And I'm an enthusiast. Any listeners who know the Enneagram, so I love saying yes and exploring. And then before I know it, I've overdone it and I'm anxious, right? And so I'll tell a brief story of one time, let's say 8 years ago, about I was gonna perform at our local theater in Bellingham called the Upfront, and this person, Seth, had asked me to perform with a group that night, and I just had a horrible day. I was just feeling crappy, and I was like, ugh. I was like, I don't really want to perform, but I told Seth I was gonna do it, I'll go. And then I was chatting with him, and he's like, hey man, I was honest with him. I was a little vulnerable, which was helpful because then he could look me in the eye and say like, hey, whenever we've played together, it's been great. And we're in the green room in the back, and we start doing some simple warm-up games. I start getting out of my head a little bit. I notice that. And then we perform, which, it can be a little anxiety producing, but we're, like you said, Sarah, we're facing. And at the end of the performance, it was just one half of a show, I felt a 180-degree difference. I had checked nothing off my to-do list, because often in my anxiety, I'm like, I got so much to get done. I gotta get this all done. But it's not about getting it done. It's about having that mind shift. And there is a quote I come to often is how play and laughter shift our cognition out of our amygdala. So we're so often, especially in our times, stuck in that fight-flight space. So play and laughter is this gift. Take it. And with improv, you have to focus. Even just simple clap circle games.
I love that. So this has been the third episode in a row where neuroscience has been involved.
Yeah.
So I feel like to all our listeners out there, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of science. But also in the context of mindful improv, when I took my first class, it hit me like a ton of bricks that this was a revealing art form. And as such, I got super into it, super addicted to it. But mainly it took me a while to realize, but I've always meditated in my life. And so the way that I like to express meditation is being able to just take a step back from the mind. Because the mind, particularly in the Indian tradition, they have this beautiful creation myth of the mind where it's your protector. You come into this world with a protector, and that's your mind, and it's there to help guide you into the world, but eventually you're supposed to leave it, leave the nest. Because that mind, while it's protecting you, it's also affirming your attachments and your fears.
Yep.
And so if you don't, take that leap of getting beyond it, then you're just going to be, living in these presets in your heads of this is what I'm afraid of, this is what I like to cling to.
Right, this is who I am.
Exactly, and the identity piece is the number one factor in all of our disgruntledness. It's convincing ourselves, I am this, therefore I can only do this, I can't do that. And improv also gives us the opportunity to expand who we think we are by even playing characters that we may normally not even play.
For sure.
But also that leads into the work specifically that both of you do, that we've all done at some point. I don't officially do it anymore, but you've gone into the consulting and corporate training realm. How would you like to speak to that and maybe plug both of yourselves in that way?
Good.
One of the things I love, I work in various sectors because in every sector there's humans, and there's similar things that cut across sectors. And really, one of the things I clarified with someone I've had as a coach the last couple of years is I want to work with leaders who want to learn, grow, and develop, and want the same for their teams. I naively assumed before 2 years ago that every leader wants to learn and grow and develop. And I realized, well, no, some just want to get things done. Right? Because to learn and grow and develop takes time. We have to slow down and pause and reflect and admit this identity thing. Maybe I'm facing some of our, lack of a better word right now, flaws or things we want to grow out of but don't know how to, and it gets complex. And so I love coming alongside leaders and teams and first of all talking with a leader and saying, where do you want your organization or your team to be in 3 to 5 years? I used to start with and sometimes I hear their problems, the pain points that come up, what's on your mind, why are you interested in talking with me? But as soon as possible, talking about where do you want to go? And really, and it's so interesting because when I talk with leaders, often I'll say this imagination question. It's 2028, which is 5 years from recording of this. What do you see? What do you imagine? And all of a sudden, they're back in the present of this problem here. Sometimes I push them back, but often it's people I've just met and they're potential clients. So I want to just slowly take what the offer is from them. But when we imagine, it uses a different part of our brain to get back to neuroscience. And so anyways, I love thinking about where is it they want to go. Maybe they thought of it, maybe they haven't. And then how are you working towards getting there? Asking them. Maybe they already are. And if they are or aren't, how can I come alongside and help support that? So some of that is through applied improv, but that's really just a subset of what I do that's really about who do we need to be and become in order to do what we want to do. or in order to face complex problems. And so I use a variety of different tools, but it's all highly interactive retreats and workshops for clients, ideally over time, because it's not going to just be a one-off and like, yay!
I know, that's what they originally want, right? It's
They
like,
do.
how do I get this, like,
Yeah.
you know, teach me
Yeah.
everything in
One
one
4-hour
session.
yeah. Do you want to talk about coaching as well, or?
I do want to talk about coaching. Thanks, Sarah. I also do coaching, and a few years ago, I started with just team development workshops, started with just improv, and then I had a client with a healthcare organization. I was like 2 days prior, I was thinking, I want to start into coaching. And then this woman, Denise, says, David, I so appreciate our conversations. Would you consider coaching me? I was like, Denise, I was just thinking this. And I said, just so you know, you'd be my first client. And what I love about coaching is it seems like there's a lot more mindfulness in that, or it's just a different flavor than teamwork, because it's about helping clients pause, slow down. I need to pause and slow down in order to create that space for them, and to cultivate a self-awareness and agency. And where do you want to go? And what's holding you back? And you know, we talk about their work scenario, but also what are the things in your life that you're doing to promote your well-being or not? How can you bring mindfulness to your use of your phone and your devices? I mean, I think that's a whole nother thing of like, that'd be interesting to do a thing at Holden. I could do some workshops on that. And not that I'm perfect at all with that, but I think our devices are tools of impulsivity. They cultivate impulsive muscles. And so if we can bring intentionality to that, there's just so much reward. So that's a bit about what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're really good at what you do too. It's really fun to facilitate. We've done several things together and it's always really fun and I always learn a lot. I teach beginning improv for Unexpected Productions in Seattle, so just straight improv for theater. And then I teach couples workshops for Unexpected Productions also, which a couple is any two people. And that's really getting the, narrowing the connectivity down to really exist or fire between those two people if they're really paying attention, listening, taking care of one another, all that stuff. I love that. And then I also do those workshops online. I travel and do them as well. And then I do some corporate training similar to what David does. And I did develop a card deck that goes with the, it is a great resource for anything, but I developed it also out of a lot of research about couples and stuff, so it goes nicely with the couples workshop. I really love that. And I have started coaching training. I'm in training right now, which I love. I've started in my coaching sessions with my fellow trainees, I've started adding in applied improv exercises, and because that will be my sort of focus and way of going about it. You know, in coaching, the coachee knows all the answers themselves already. They have it within them already. You're just helping them to ask questions to help them get there. And a lot of these exercises can really help them access their intuition, which is maybe blocked for some reason. And you know, Viola Spolin, the creator of improv, said that her dream was a world of accessible intuition. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're hoping to do. That's what our training is. So those are some of the things that I do, and I also do things that I don't know what they are yet. We'll see.
True that.
We will see.
That's the essence of improv.
Yeah.
There are things that are going to happen in the next 2 years that I have no idea about with improv and teaching and learning.
Yeah, I like when you said about Viola Spolin saying accessible intuition. Because I love, as we talked earlier in this interview about connectedness, right? There's connectedness at all levels. Connectedness between us right here. Connectedness in our own minds. I mean, Dan Siegel, who's this pioneer of interpersonal neurobiology, talks about health. He says in mental health, we often talk about mental illness. And you've got the, whatever it is, DSM, something that psychologists studied, some big reference guide of all the maladies. But he says wellness, he says, is integration. It's connection of left and right, all kinds of parts of our brain and body. And so that's communication too, and connectedness, right? So accessible intuition, we're really talking about connectedness with that. And that's a muscle that has to have practice. And be like, is that my body telling me that I'm full? That I should stop? Do I really want to have this piece of toast?
Yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Oh, now that you brought it toast, the answer is always yes.
Yeah.
That should be a bumper sticker.
Yeah, well, and, you know, the thing that I think we've sort of alluded to as well is that improv is really fun. It's just fun. Like there's so much playfulness, and people will be in my classes and they'll say, I cannot remember the last time I just played.
Right.
Like it's almost overwhelming emotionally to them sometimes. Like it's kind of moving to think of themselves as people who play.
And I wonder too if there's this sense of, it's a practice too.
David and I raise our hands. So that's
She taught me this.
to the listener, David just raised his hand. we do that.
And now I lost it.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault.
We were talking about play and laughter.
Oh,
and
right,
how fun
and
it is
overwhelming
when
it.
people
I
play.
wonder if there's come to be that sense of overwhelming emotion, and I'm feeling this and almost wondering and sensing because people are like, oh, I used to play when I was 8 and I haven't, and feeling the tragedy of that.
Yeah,
Because it feels so good.
it feels so good.
So one of the things I firmly believe, and I would imagine we believe, is that play is not trivial.
No.
It's anything but. It's the opposite. It's important. It's vital.
It's revolutionary.
Yeah,
It's revolutionary.
it is.
You say more about that?
One of the things that I've always loved about sort of like mystical theology is this notion that creativity is one of the ultimate acts. And so I would associate creativity with play as well. And so as long as we're creating, and that even goes into like identities, if we are redefining ourselves every moment to give us this like sense of like infinity or infinite potential or however you want to talk about that. Yeah, play and creativity allows us to do that.
And have a different relationship with the unknown.
Yeah.
So, case in point, someone I know in talking with their therapist, and they were talking with this person about their fear of the unknown, and then help this person think about when is a time unknown has been joyful. And this person talked about when they're at this wonderful place with their family that was pedestrian and bike friendly. It wasn't Holden, but another place. And they would discover interesting things and take photos of them. They didn't know and I think about when I run into someone at Holden and we have this conversation, like the one I had on Monday. There's a delight in that. Uncertainty gets a bad rap often. And speaking of play, one thing I would love to do before the end of our thing, besides just talk about play, is play.
Yeah.
The seed has been planted.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
I mean, and this has already been play.
That's right.
Conversation. Let's be honest.
Improvisers, I mean, that's the thing with improvisers. Once you get you become involved in improv, you're always looking for play. And you're always looking for, where's the game? Where's the, it's like everything becomes possible. Everything is open to you as a game.
Yeah. To the audience, gestures are being made.
Mirrored.
Yes.
Mirroring.
Mirror cats, all that. I do want to get to the summer theme, and don't worry, we will play. Yes, lots of gestures happening right now. This is like a qigong ball of energy pose that we're doing right now. But Eden is calling. What does that mean to both of you, and how have you reflected on that as you've been in the Holden community this week?
Well, when I think about a garden, when I think about Eden, I think about garden. When I think about garden, thinking about Nance Mitchell's song, where she's like, when I think about, I think about a permaculture garden, and I don't know a ton about permaculture, but what I do know is there's companion planting, things are planted, and there's relationship. When something comes up, let's say a weed, I'm putting air quotes here, weed, it tells us something about the soil. I have a friend, Larry, who does permaculture. He actually works now at Yale for something they call their farminary. It's like a farm seminary part of thing. So there's companion planting, something comes up, it tells you about the soil. Oh, it needs more nitrogen, or it doesn't have enough. And also how much you can produce in a small acreage, with just a different way of thinking about farming and gardening. Like, I love those things and all the beauty that comes out. And so when I think about that, I guess I think about improv, and there's just even the simplest things. There's so much, like an explosion of life
I was really moved in a conversation yesterday with a woman named Laura who was here and has been in our class every day, who was talking about something that she was a part of where at the beginning they did this, and we did it last night in the sacred space, where at the beginning everyone just started breathing and then began to synchronize their breath with the breath of the earth and the breath of the trees and the breath of the animals that were there, and just every living, existing thing in that interconnectedness. And that, for me, has really felt like what this week has been like, with all of the other faculty with their work and just talking about the interconnectedness and the co-creation and all of that stuff with the very land that we are on, with the very creatures that are here, with the very air that we are breathing, with the sky and the wind and the water. And so that to me has been very much about and how we are, there's this really great interview with TJ and Dave on Radiolab. Have you ever heard that interview? They talk about starting from nothing, about improv and starting from nothing, and how they believe that the story is actually already happening. And what they do is they quiet on stage and they look at each other and they listen and they wait and then they begin and then they connect into the story that's already going. They tell that story and then they sort of move on, and the story itself keeps going. And maybe someone else picks it up later or maybe not. But it's sort of like that co-creation, that larger creativity is here, it's already happening, and it's our job to just, or our honor, our privilege to slow down, breathe in, and connect with what's already happening. And that playfulness, that's what it's been for me.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
3 more things that came up as you were.
David, 3 things.
I'm going to say harmony, creation, and something larger than ourselves that we're entering. Okay, so harmony, like in creation, or I talk about permaculture or Eden, I imagine all living things are in harmony, right? And even like the end of scripture talking about Revelation, the lion with the lamb, the child with the snake above the snake's hole, like there's a sense of harmony. And in improv, the best improv is when all the improvisers are totally giving and taking and letting go and in sync. So creating is another thing in improv. We're creating all the time, and that's the garden. And creating with, I love what you said about the TJ Dave, like, it's a good reminder. There is something already here. There's a mystery that we're participating with, right? And we get to play with, right? And so being curious about what's already there, we don't have to bring everything, which is so liberating.
And that's probably the greatest misconception of what improv is that you have to do all these things in order to, chase a laugh or, be
Clever, funny,
exactly
unique. Yeah.
And you end up not being any of those things anyway.
Well, and you often end up telling other people's stories or stories that have already been told, as opposed to bringing the story that lives within you and the person that's on stage with you.
And when I think of like this modern age of, people don't know their own voice, and that leads to a lot of anxieties. Like it's often this mimicry, and mirroring is a beautiful natural human technique that we all do. I feel like as children, like we have to mirror things. But if we don't grow out of that, then we don't develop our own expression, which is sad.
Yeah, it's hard too when the identity is, when people aren't telling their own stories or aren't able to access their intuition, their creativity, they glom onto other things. That's called a callback.
That's called
but they glom onto other things that they feel are their identity, whether it's a political belief or a family belief or whatever it is, that they sort of can use that as a shield to not access their own story and move into the world in it's vulnerable. Dr. Brene Brown says it's hard to hate up close. Right? And one of the ways we get up close is through play. And I talk about that a lot in my couples workshops, where people come in and it's not therapy. I'm not trying to fix anybody's relationships or anything. And people often find that they are at an impasse, if one way or another, they're not communicating well, whatever it is. If they play first, they find that they have more relationship resiliency, they have more compassion for themselves, more compassion for each other, and then they are able to move forward in a way that feels their ears are more open, their hearts are more open, they can connect. David,
Beautiful.
I see your hand.
Thank you, Sarah. This takes me to what you're saying. There was someone who did a documentary about his work and applied to improv. Can't remember his name, but he had worked with some politicians in DC.
Yeah.
And he tells a story, maybe you've heard this, where someone came up to him after an improv session. This is Democrats and Republicans in the same room playing improv. He says, "Damn you, you made me like Karl Rove." Because that's the thing, when you play with people,
Yeah.
you're away from that distance.
Yep.
And you're coming into this different space.
Yep. Yeah, I don't even ask in my improv classes, my 8-week classes, I don't ask any personal information about where they work, what they believe. I don't in any way. So all they are doing is creating this tight-knit ensemble of people who play. And that's their language.
Because sometimes I think what we're doing when we don't do that, and we're putting people in boxes and labels, we're in a sense dehumanizing or othering,
course,
right?
yeah.
And it's hard to do that when you're playing.
When you feel like you know, okay, oh, they're there, I know all about that already.
Yes, yes.
I know the end of that story.
And
As
we don't.
opposed-
Or you can like play a character that you would normally not enjoy.
Yes.
Like, and then you get to see like through that perspective, and then like compassion like really starts to pour through.
Oh yeah, there's some great applied improv games about that, about coming in from the opposite point of view.
Yeah.
They're hard, but they're good.
Totally.
Yeah.
Ah, juicy. Okay, this is great. Okay. David really wants to play right now.
Oh, that's right.
So we're gonna play.
What do you want to play, David?
Yeah. What do you got for us?
I know what you're gonna say.
Sarah and I like to play a game over and over and over because it's always new and always fun, called Bumper Sticker. And we create a bumper sticker one word at a time. And when any of us, or both of us, or all of us, since there's 3 of us here, think it's the end of it, we say stick it, and we push our hand out like we're putting the bumper sticker on a car.
Okay.
And we probably don't want to yell too loud for the mic, or
Oh,
we tend to be like,
stick it.
stick it.
that's fine.
Okay.
It'll be this like glossy, like staticky like thing,
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to start? Since you...
I do, yes. And we'll go this way, just a little rotation.
Are we gonna like talk about the bumper sticker?
No.
No.
We just do it. You mean like expand on it?
Yeah,
into a scene?
no, not into a scene, but like how that came into being.
Oh, well, that's a wonderful.
Let's talk about that after.
Yeah.
Okay,
It is really fun to see how other people think and stuff.
Play first, talk later.
Talk like
Stick it.
okay, stick it.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Will.
Fawns.
Oh, fawns.
Fawns.
Will fawns leap?
Into.
Deserts.
Stick it. Stay tuned.
Fawns? What
The
is
fawns.
that?
The fawns. Yeah, totally.
Just
Breathe.
easily
When.
Tornadoes.
shake.
The.
Earth.
Stick it.
We could start creating these bumper stickers for like help. Okay, honey, there's a tornado. What do we do?
Yeah.
Breathe easily.
Right, and that's like a self-help like manifesto
Yes.
to like how to like be in turbulent times. So
That's right.
anyway.
Well, and we have actually found that, especially when we don't think at all, we just are present, that our intuition, bumper stickers can be very, very truthful and intuitive and have a lot to teach us about what's going on. So, gimme
Some.
patience.
today.
Stick it.
All caps.
Okay, yeah.
Give me some paycheck.
I should have said now, right now. All right. Are you going to keep going?
Let's
or-
keep going.
Okay.
Laughter.
Becomes
Contagious.
If
I
Open.
my
Stick it.
That's right. It's a cleanse. You know, it's a cleanse documentary. You know, right? Yeah. Have some laughter.
Honey, I've been reading this book about detox. It's a 28-day thing. You can only have saltines. Well, I'm reading this other magazine where apparently laughter for just 20 minutes a day can do the same thing.
It really is. I mean, laughter is like, it's a weight loss program as well. Like,
and it stimulates your vagus nerve, which I'm a big fan of. It stimulates your vagus nerve, which gets you into rest and digest, so you get out of fight and flight. So,
yeah.
Are we still playing?
What?
I think we
always.
Always.
Okay. Let's see. Fire.
Tends
to
consume
any
watery
substances
that
pandas
carry
on
my
backpack.
So true. Fire tends to consume any water that pandas carry on my backpack.
Sometimes David and I are like, that one goes like wraps around the car. The whole bumper. Yeah.
Okay, how about one more bumper sticker on toast related to Holden toast?
Okay.
Since it's such a special thing.
Okay.
I think I skipped you. Maybe do you want to start?
Gluten.
Makes
For
Marvelous.
toast.
and
When
I
eat
jam
glom
forever.
stick it.
and the edited version of that one is glom forever.
So now what's interesting to me is, David, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you were picking up on my micro offers of gluten was because I
know about her. She's
and so I could see in your face and in your body that you saw what was going on with me, and you were kind of thinking about that in the bumper sticker of like directing it to what.
Because you said and, I think you might have said and.
Gluten is.
See, yeah, I saw your face as soon as I said gluten, and it was just like, and I was like,
my enemy.
Yeah, but it was interesting. I mean, that's a lot of what we teach is all those micro offers. And the more you do improv, the more that you're paying attention to those and going, how can I incorporate those in the play that we're doing?
So with that, Sarah, I want to loop back to what you were talking about research earlier, and you've told me before the Gottmans.
Yep.
What are their first names again?
Doctors John and Julie Gottman.
Doctors John and Julie Gottman, who are from Seattle, I think.
Yeah.
They've done this love lab and all tons of research on what makes relationships work.
Yep.
And speaking of these micro offers, right? Those little, I think they even studied facial expressions, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things they talk about is bids, I think.
Yeah, bids for attention.
Right. Mm-hmm. So even in our friendship, if you do something and I can notice that and pick up on it, how can I, in improv, we talk about accepting an offer or blocking it. I don't have to agree with this, but I notice this is coming from Sara. So what do I want to do with that?
Right. How do I honor that?
Mm-hmm. How do I honor that?
Yeah.
Right, and that gets into like psychological like wherewithal and like healing.
Totally.
I stand by that every human would benefit from doing improv. I think it should be standard curriculum.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like at the very beginning, like in like preschool. Yeah. I mean, kids already know how to play as well, and I feel like our role in the world is helping adults feel like children. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But also, get them young. You know, like
right.
And in the halls of Congress.
Yeah. Well, and in these times we're in, we must think outside the box and possibility. And so when we get caught up in fear, we get in binary thinking, either or.
Yeah.
And so part of what I want to say is maybe some of our final thoughts is how do we create safe containers, even of 2 people and 3 people and churches and communities where we can, people have talked about this week, I felt safe here.
Yeah.
And there's one game called the Yes and Superhero where we create a superhero bit by bit. And people realize, we say, even if your superhero is carrying 2 paper clips, we're going to say yes. And they're not just told we're going to support, they start feeling it viscerally, which I love opening up new avenues as we're closing.
I know.
So, Bessel van der Kolk is an author. The body keeps the score. But there's a quote I want to say. It's so good. People who have endured trauma, whether it's trauma, all caps trauma, any level of trauma, we need experiences that viscerally contradict.
Yes.
Viscerally contradict the helplessness, rage, and collapse felt during trauma. So we need safe spaces where we can have those experiences.
Yeah, this has been delightful.
Thank you, Dad.
Thanks for playing and having really real conversations, and yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
David.
Yay!